If protecting someone meant hurting them first, would you still call it love? Or would you call it a trick? Stay with me, because this story gives you a clear test for loyalty, and it might save you from the next sweet talker with a knife. We drop in at midnight, where a ring of phones throws a cold light on a clearing, and a soft voice tells a crowd to breathe as one. The voice belongs to a man they call the Guide, and he smiles like a doctor with good news. He lifts his hand and asks for a name, because every knight must offer a clean cut for the garden. Mara Voss stands among them with a calm face and a busy mind. She is the one who runs the schedules, the rides, and the little kindnesses that feel like leashes. She believes that pressure can be care when you aim it right. She scans the circle, and her eyes pause on a new face who watches too closely and smiles like a person holding a question behind their teeth. The new face is Cass, who came in yesterday with a soft sweater and careful eyes. The Guide waits because a pause is an old friend of power. Mara names a different person, and the crowd gasps because the cut came from a gentle hand. Messages buzz in pockets, and one young man steps into the center with a stiff back. His name is Theo, and he is Mara's younger brother, who wants to be strong without her shadow on him.
A clean cut saves a limb, and mercy does not tremble.
The Guide says it like a lullaby, and everyone nods, because repetition feels like truth when you are tired. That is the moment you need to see, because the rule of the place is simple and sharp. Betrayal is renamed as care, and to refuse is called weakness. Now let me pull back and show you how this game works, and why it works so fast. The group calls itself a school, but the lessons are mostly about obedience dressed as honesty. They keep birthdays on a whiteboard, and they bring tea to the ones who cry. They also collect secrets like coins, and call it growth when those coins get spent in public. Mara learned this grammar of harm over time, and she thinks she can speak it to help Theo survive it. She keeps a chalk stub in her pocket from her job in the storage room, where she draws arrows on cold floors to guide lost newcomers. Those arrows make her feel useful and safe, because directions calm panic. Tonight she stands near Theo and watches the Guide watch her brother. She plans a dozen small trades in her head, because she always has a spare plan. She can swap a shift, or move a ceremony, or place a volunteer in the way of a blow. She thinks this is love with a hard face, and she thinks the hard face is necessary. Cass notices all of this, because Cass is not only new. Cass also writes for a tiny magazine that likes stories about power dressed as kindness. Cass is here with open eyes and a slow breath, and a promise to protect names while mapping systems. For now, Cass keeps quiet, because early noise gets crushed. The night ends with hugs that feel like grips, and people drift back to bare rooms where praise is folded into rules. Morning comes with lists and chores, and a lesson about mercy.
Loyalty is telling hard truths to your friends before the world tells them for you.
The class nods and writes the line down and calls it wisdom. Mara leads a practice where pairs share secrets in low voices, under a banner that says clean hearts and clear eyes. Each reveal gets a warm thank you and a small nudge toward a public share later. Theo watches Mara teach, and he feels proud and annoyed at the same time. He wants to be seen without her help, and he wants the badge they give to people who pass the hard gates. He signs up for a mirror session, which is the long night where people shout affirmations that sound like confessions. Mara reads the roster and feels a sharp worry in her chest. She starts her quiet work, which looks like kindness, and feels like chess. She finds a volunteer who thinks the mirror is an honor and swaps the names with a smile and a hug. She tells herself this is a mercy and a win, and she does not look too long at the cost. Cass slips a folded note under Mara's during cleanup.
I know who you really want to protect, and I can help if you let me.
Mara reads it with steady hands and a faster pulse. She meets Cass by the back steps, where the air smells like wet leaves and soap.
I write about structures, and I do not print names, and I want to understand how this place turns hurt into homework.
Cass keeps her voice soft, because soft gets past guards.
I keep people safe by placing the pain where it does the least harm, and I can live with that.
Mara says that like a weather report and waits for judgment.
I will not judge you, but I will name the pattern, and you might not like the sound of it.
They agree to swap notes without exposing anyone and to mark exits rather than set fires. The day moves like a conveyor belt, and the guide walks through rooms like a gentle parent.
I am proud of those who face themselves, and I am proud of those who tell a friend the hard truth first.
He remembers small details about each person, and he speaks with care, and he never raises his voice. This is the velvet that hides the wire, and you need to feel both. That evening, he calls a circle again, and he praises Mara as a model of clean mercy. He gives her a soft band for her wrist, which means she is now gate steward, who watches the doors and the thresholds. The band is gentle cloth, but it presses like a cuff. Theo beams because he thinks his sister has finally been seen the way he sees her. He also feels a sting, because her rise is another shadow over his small light. The guide announces a new step for Theo, which is a public unmasking at the end of the week.
There is courage in you that needs finishing.
He says it with pride that sounds like love and feels like a hook. Mara nods like a soldier who got orders, and then she starts working the board. She moves, shifts, and changes partners, and guides the harshest voices toward other targets. She leaves chalk arrows under benches and along stairs so the nervous ones can find quiet rooms when the crowd surges. She sleeps in short slices because vigilance can feel like devotion. Cass watches the small moves and draws a map in a notebook with clean lines and no names. Cass writes that the system turns confession into currency and mercy into a blade with a smile. Cass writes that the softest hand sometimes makes the deepest mark. The days count down, and the heat around Theo rises. People stop talking when he walks in, and then praise him a little too loud. He has a choice, and he takes it because he wants to stand on his own feet.
I will do the unmasking, and I want space from you while I do it.
Theo tells Mara that line with a steady face and shaking hands. Mara says yes, and then finds 3 ways to hold him up without touching him. She is trying to love him without a leash, and it is hard for her. The night before the unmasking, she meets Cass again, near the storage door.
I will trigger a fire alarm if the room turns ugly, and you will hate the noise, but it will open exits.
Cass lays out a plan that is more map than fight, and Mara sees the shape of hope in it.
I will leak the system to an alumni channel with no names, and a simple message that says control is not care.
Mara has her own move because power respects documentation. She schedules the leak right before the ceremony, and she hopes the shock will cool the blade. The night arrives with heat and perfume, and a low chant that feels like a long inhale. Phones go into a box, and the band on Mara's wrist holds the lid shut. The guide steps up with soft eyes and open hands, and the crowd leans in like grass to light.
A clean cut saves a limb, and tonight we cut with love.
Theo stands at the center, under a paper lantern that shakes a little like a heart. Mara breathes slow and thinks of every arrow she drew and every trade she made. The leak goes out to the alumni list with clear screenshots and calm notes. The first replies pop like bubbles, as old members wake up far away and remember the wire under the velvet. The guide's phone buzzes on a shelf, and a helper lifts it toward him like an offering. He reads for a long second, and then smiles and thanks the helper, and sets the phone down again.
Betrayal is proof of belief, because only the faithful take the risk to purify.
He turns the cut around and calls the wound a gift, and the room sighs like a single body. He raises his hand, and a screen appears with a list of swaps and special favors that Mara made for months. He tells the crowd that these were vanity and control, and not love. He edits context like a painter edits light, and the scene looks new even though nothing changed. The faces turn toward Mara, with a mix of thanks and rage and fear.
Did you choose pain for me because it was easier for you than letting me fall?
Theo asks that one line because he is brave and he is hurt. Mara tells him the plain truth, which is that she chose small pain to stop a larger one, and she hates that sentence.
I did it to keep you breathing, and I am sorry that I became a gate instead of a sister.
The room moves like weather, and the guide opens his arms like a safe harbor.
Let us thank the one who revealed the rot, because truth will set us free when we stop hiding behind care.
He is kind, and he is dangerous, and those two facts live in the same smile. Cass touches the alarm case with 3 fingers and waits for a sign. Mara looks at the exits and thinks of the arrows and makes her choice. She will not drag Theo through a door, because dragging is just a softer cage. She will make the door obvious and let him choose. She nods to Cass, and Cass breaks the thin glass and pulls down hard.
Please move to the nearest exit in a calm line.
The old speaker on the wall repeats the same line in a flat voice, and the paper lantern shivers. The doors drop, and the night air comes in like a clean taste. People freeze, because freedom can feel like a trick on the first breath. Mara walks fast along the side wall and draws a thick chalk arrow at knee height, where panic eyes will land. She draws another near the stair, and another by a low gate, and each line is simple and kind. Cass waves a few people toward the marks and keeps her head down, because a small profile survives a big moment. Theo stands at the center with his hands open and his jaw tight.
A storm cannot move a rooted tree, and you are almost ready.
The guide whispers to him and calls fear a test and belonging a prize. Theo looks at his sister and then at the arrows, and then at the faces, waiting for him to model courage the way the group defines it. He steps toward the nearest arrow and stops, and then steps again. He reaches the door and turns, because leaving never feels neat. He sees a corner where the light is bad, and he knows people will miss the path. He grabs the chalk from Mara's hand and draws 2 short arrows and a line that points to clean ground.
I am not your project, and I am not his proof, and I am leaving on my own legs.
He speaks one time, and it is enough for him. A few follow him, because courage spreads like laughter when it is honest. Some stay, because the velvet is still soft, and their stories are not ready to change shape. Sirens sing somewhere far, and insects buzz near, and the room exhales into the night. Outside on the curb, Mara sits with her wristband in her palm like a dead moth. Cass records a short note for a future piece that will map pressure and kindness in straight lines.
When someone teaches you to call a knife a hug, you should ask what they plan to cut.
Theo leans against a pole with chalk dust on his fingers and silence on his face. He is not triumphant, and he does not need to be. He is simply out, and that is enough for a first night. Let me wrap the lesson without poetry, because we do not need it here. Loyalty without consent is custody. Betrayal without truth is anesthesia. Love is not a script, or a ceremony, or a band on your wrist. Love leaves arrows anyone can follow, and does not mind if you take them without asking. That is the whole test, and you can use it in any room where soft words guard a hard rule. I also want you to notice how fast a group can rename harm once the leader smiles. It begins with a small phrase that sounds kind, and ends with a new dictionary where pain has polite names. The fix is boring and strong, which is to keep your own dictionary close, and to share it with people you trust. If your care needs a stage and an audience, it is not care. If your care needs secrecy and a badge, it is not care. If your care needs you to break someone to save them, it is not care. Care is arrows, and doors, and time, and the dignity to pick your own pace. Now I want to tell you how Mara grows after this night, because growth is slow and quiet, and it matters. She starts by keeping her hands still for entire days, which is new for her. She learns to sit next to Theo without arranging the room, and to wait for him to speak first. She throws away the band and keeps the chalk, because tools are not guilty and exits are good. She meets others who left, and she listens more than she talks, which is harder than it sounds. Cass publishes a clean story about structures that attract soft hearts who hate chaos, and who are told that control is love. The story does not name the group or the people, which keeps it from becoming a weapon in the wrong hands. It becomes a quiet shield for the next person who types the name of a club into a search bar and waits for a sign. The guide keeps working because power rarely retires on moral grounds. He builds a softer brand and uses different words, and the same moves. The arrows still matter because they teach a habit and a stance. They say here is a way out in case you want it, and that is the most respectful sentence on earth. I will give you a set of small red flags that you can carry in your pocket without drama. Be careful when a group treats your doubt as a stain to be scrubbed, rather than a signal to be heard. Be careful when a leader praises you for hurting a friend and calls it a blessing. Be careful when secrets are stored like coins that can buy safety in public. Be careful when love keeps asking you to prove itself with pain. If you feel two hands at your back while a door narrows ahead, you are allowed to step sideways. If you feel your words being bent until they praise what you do not believe, you are allowed to go quiet and leave. If someone calls your leaving a betrayal, you can answer that leaving is the cleanest truth you have. All of this is simple, but not easy, and that is why we practice it in stories first. You took this walk tonight so you can recognize the path when it shows up in a studio, or a startup, or a circle that calls itself a family. Remember the test from the start, and ask who taught you to rename hurt as help. Ask what they wanted from you after the renaming was complete. Ask where the arrows are, and if no one can show them, then draw one for yourself. I will give you a last picture to keep, because pictures stick when words blur. It is a dark stare, and a small chalk mark that points to air, and the simplest sentence your body can read. It says this way if you want it, and it means you are free, even if you do not step today. That is the difference between love and a lesson delivered with a blade. The blade demands a choice right now, and love lets you decide when your legs are ready. This is your fable, and the moral sits in plain words, because plain words carry well. If a voice tells you a wound is a gift, then count your ribs and check the door. If a hand pushes while calling itself gentle, then step where your breath returns. If you must betray someone to prove care, then care has already left the room. Keep your own dictionary and your own chalk, and you will be hard to herd and easy to love. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end, because your time is real and I respect it. If you liked this story, please tap like, subscribe, and drop a comment, because it helps new people find these lessons. If you want to support the channel, please use the QR code on the screen, or the link in the description. You will also find links in the description to other series that live in a very different world from this one. I will see you in the next story, so take care of your breath and keep your arrows close.